May 13th, 1968, 2:30 in the morning. The rubber plantation east of Saigon erupts in fire. Rocket-propelled grenades scream through the darkness. Mortar rounds explode between howitzer platforms. Machine gun fire cuts through the humid air. 110 Australian soldiers face 2,500 North Vietnamese regulars in the most desperate close-quarters battle of the Vietnam War. Before you dive into this story of incredible courage and tactical brilliance, make sure to subscribe to Vietnam War Records and hit that notification bell so you never miss the untold stories of valor and sacrifice from this brutal conflict. What happens in the next 40 minutes will rewrite everything you thought you knew about Australian forces in Vietnam and why the enemy feared them more than any other Allied unit in the theater. The guns fall silent. Gunner Mick Grimes lies behind his M60 machine gun 50 meters in front of gun position number 6. His partner, John Schwartze, scans the darkness through the weapon's iron sights. They have been on watch for 2 hours. The night belongs to the enemy in Vietnam. Everyone knows this. The Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army own the darkness. They move through it like predators, invisible and patient. But tonight something feels different. The air carries a tension that makes the skin crawl. Grimes can feel it in his bones. Something is coming. Something big. He adjusts his position behind the machine gun and waits. The rubber trees stand like silent witnesses around fire support base Coral. Their trunks create shadows within shadows. Perfect concealment for an approaching enemy. Perfect terrain for an ambush. Perfect killing ground if you know how to use it. The North Vietnamese know. They have been watching all day. They watched the Australian helicopters arrive. They watched the gunners wrestle their 2.2-ton howitzers into position. They watched the frantic digging of defensive positions. They watched the confusion. They watched the mistakes. And they made their plans. 12 hours earlier, the day begins in chaos. Operation Tone Thang. Complete victory. The name carries weight. 70,000 Allied troops are hunting the remnants of the enemy forces that struck Saigon just 1 week ago. The second offensive. The North Vietnamese tried again after their failed Tet attacks in February. They struck the capital on May 5th. They threw everything they had at the city, and they failed. Now, according to American intelligence, they are withdrawing. Low morale. Beaten and demoralized. This is what the Australian commanders are told. This is the intelligence that flows down from brigade headquarters to battalion level to company commanders. The enemy is running. The Australians are being positioned to block their withdrawal. Cut them off. Finish them. Simple operation. Routine deployment. Establish a fire support patrol base. Set up the guns. Send the infantry companies out on ambush patrols. Dominate the standard procedure for the 1st Australian Task Force. They have done this dozens of times across Phuoc Tuy province. This should be no different. But it is different. Everything about this deployment is different. The 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment receives verbal orders only on the evening of May 10th. No written operation orders, no detailed maps with marked position, just verbal instructions. They will air assault into an area 16 kilometers northeast of the massive American base at Bien Hoa. They will establish Fire Support Patrol Base Coral at map reference X-Ray Tango 925284, landing zone K-Pad. The guns will fly in, the infantry will deploy. By nightfall on May 12th, they will own. Lieutenant Colonel Philip Bennett, commanding officer of 1 RAR, listens to the orders at the American base at Bearcat. He is a professional soldier, Sandhurst trained, a veteran of Malaya and Borneo. He knows jungle warfare. He knows the importance of detailed planning. He knows that verbal orders alone are dangerous. But he has his mission. Block enemy withdrawal routes. Support the American effort. Get it done. He briefs his company commanders. They will insert by helicopter. 4 companies, A company, B company, C company. Each will move to designated ambush positions after landing. The battalion headquarters will remain at the fire support base along with the assault pioneer platoon and anti-tank platoon. The mortar platoon with their 681mm mortars will provide close fire support. Simple plan, clean execution, or so it seems. May 12th dawns hot and humid. The air is thick with moisture. Storm clouds build on the horizon. The Chinook and Huey helicopters warm up their engines at Bearcat. The men of 1 RAR and the gunners of 102 Battery load their equipment, ammunition, rations, water, weapons, entrenching tools, radio batteries, everything a soldier needs to survive in the bush. The gunners have additional concerns. Their 6M2A2 howitzers must be lifted by Chinook. Each gun weighs over 2 tons. Each requires a separate lift. The ammunition must follow. High explosive rounds, illumination rounds, white phosphorus, hundreds of shells, tons of explosives. All must reach the landing zone safely. All must be positioned correctly. All must be ready to fire before dark. The timeline is tight. First insertion at 0700 hours. Last insertion scheduled for 1246 hours. Less than 6 hours to establish a defensible position capable of supporting 2 infantry battalions operating across dozens of square kilometers. Less than 6 hours to turn empty rubber plantation into fortress. It should be enough time. It has to be enough time. But nothing goes according to plan. B Company, 3rd Battalion RAR is supposed to secure the initial landing zone at 0700. They launch. The helicopters lift off. They fly north over the scarred landscape, bomb craters, defoliated jungle, burned villages. The signatures of war cover the earth below. The pilots approach landing zone K-pad, then American air controllers contact. Enemy forces engaged in the vicinity. The landing zone is hot. B Company diverts to an alternate landing zone 1,000 meters southwest. They land. They begin moving back toward the original, but they are not there when the next wave arrives. At 07:10 hours, the reconnaissance parties from 12th Field Regiment and 1 RAR touch down at K-pad. They expect to find B Company securing the area. Instead, they find American infantry from the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. The Americans are engaged. Airstrikes pound the jungle to the west. Artillery fire crashes into the rubber trees. This is not a safe rear area. This is Indian country. Hot and getting hotter. Lieutenant Ian Ahern steps off the Huey helicopter with his survey party. He is the gun position officer for 102 Battery, 24 years old. He is responsible for laying out the 6 gun positions where the howitzers will fire from. Standard procedure is simple. The regimental second-in-command, Major Brian Murtaugh, will indicate the general area for the battery, approximately 400 meters square. Ahern will then mark individual gun positions within that area, each gun separated by appropriate distance, each position offering fields of fire, each location providing neutral. Simple geometry, basic artillery doctrine, done 100 times before. But Major Murtaugh is not at the landing zone. The reconnaissance party has disappeared. Ahern tries to raise them on the radio. No response. He scans the rubber plantation. Where are they? An American infantryman points into the trees. Some guys left the perimeter, headed out into Indian country. Ahern feels the first stirrings of concern. This is not how operations are supposed to start. This is not proper procedure. This is confusion. And confusion kills. Then the sky fills with the distinctive whop 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 of Chinooks. Big twin rotor cargo helicopters. They are carrying the guns of 161 Battery, Royal New Zealand Artillery. But they are not supposed to arrive until 1000 hours. It is barely past 0730. The timeline has collapsed. The New Zealand guns are coming in 2.5 hours early, and there is nowhere to land them. No gun positions have been marked. No areas have been cleared. No fields of fire have been verified. Lieutenant Rod Baldwin, the New Zealand gun position officer, sprints away from the landing zone to mark positions. Anywhere. Just get the guns on the ground. The Chinooks cannot. They are exposed. They are vulnerable. They need to drop their loads and get out. Baldwin throws smoke grenade. The helicopters descend. The guns come off the hooks and slam into the red earth. The air crew disconnect the rigging and climb back aboard. The Chinooks roar. 6 howitzers sit on the ground with no tractors to move them. No prepared positions. No ammunition immediately available. Only manpower. The New Zealanders grab ropes and start dragging the 2-ton guns into hasty positions. It is not elegant. It is not proper gunnery procedure. But it gets the job done. Finally, Ahern's radio crackles. Major Murtaugh's voice. Meet me up the track. That is all. Up the track. No map reference. No specific location, no grid coordinates. Just up the track. The rubber plantation is crisscrossed with tracks. Dozens of them. Vehicle tracks. Footpaths. Game trails. Which track? Ahern requests Murtaugh throw a smoke grenade so they can locate him. The colored smoke billows up through the canopy. Ahern takes a compass bearing. He grabs Second Lieutenant Bob Lowry and Gunner Jeff Dwyer, the battery surveyor. The 3 men leave the landing zone and head into the rubber. They walk north. The sounds of the chaotic helicopter insertions fade when they pass through the rows of rubber trees. The trunks are evenly planted by French colonists decades ago. Now the plantation is abandoned. Overgrown, the trees still produce latex, but no one harvests it. The war has consumed everything. They walk 500 meters, then 1,000, then 1,500. Finally, they find Major Mortar. He is standing in a small He indicates the area. This is where 102 battery will establish. Ahern looks around. He looks back the way they came. 1,500 meters from the landing zone. 1,500 meters from where 161 battery is setting up their guns. This is wrong. Batteries operating in mutual support should be positioned no more than 400 meters apart. This distance makes coordination difficult. This distance makes defense nearly impossible. This distance violates basic artillery doctrine. Ahern voices his concerns. Mortar is unmoved. The task force is deploying. The space will be needed. We need room for everyone. The decision is made. 102 battery will establish here. 1,500 meters north of 161 battery. 2 separate positions. 2 separate defensive perimeters. 2 separate fire support bases in everything but name. Ahern swallows his objections. Orders are orders. He begins the technical work. They need an accurate position for the guns. They move through the rubber to a set of ruins visible on the map. Using the theodolite, Dwyer takes measurements. They work back to the position Murtaugh has chosen. They verify the grid location, then they see it. 100 freshly dug fighting positions, circular weapon pits, carefully constructed, recently occupied. Ahern bends down. An AK-47 round lies in the dirt. Nearby, a candy wrapper with Ho Chi Minh's face printed on it. His blood runs cold. The enemy has been here. Not days ago, not weeks ago. Within the last 24 hours. A large enemy force, battalion size at least. They rested here. They prepared fighting positions here. They were organized. They were disciplined. Ahern reports this to Major Mortar. Critical intelligence. Actionable intelligence. Enemy forces in the immediate area, but the information goes no further. Mortar tells no one. The warning is not passed to the infantry companies. It is not reported to battalion headquarters. It disappears into the fog of a confused deployment, and the men who need to know remain ignorant of the threat gathering in the rubber trees around them. The helicopter insertions continue through the morning and into the afternoon. The American helicopters are pulled off for other missions. The schedule collapses completely. Units arrive out of sequence. 102 batteries guns begin arriving at 12:30 hours. The Chinooks hover over the marked positions. The guns come off the hooks. The crews manhandle them into place. Gun number 1, gun number 2, gun number 3 on the southern end of the position. Gun number 4, gun number 5, gun number 6 on the northern end. Each crew immediately begins digging personal weapon pits first, 4 feet deep minimum. Stage 1 digging, deep enough to provide protection from mortar fragments and small arms fire. The men curse the hard red earth, but they dig. They know the value of good cover. They know that holes save lives. An O-sized bulldozer and precious time before darkness. The dozer operator begins piling earth around the guns, protective buns, walls of packed earth 3 feet high. He starts with gun number 4, then gun number 5, then gun number 6 on the northern end of the position. He is racing against the sun. The light is fading. He completes the buns around the 3 northern guns just as dusk approaches. He has no time for the southern guns. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 remain exposed. The fortunes of some positions are protected, some are not. That random chance will determine who lives and who dies in the hours ahead. The mortar platoon from 1 Ra arrives in the last helicopter sorties. Lieutenant Tony Jensen, the mortar line officer, supervises the unloading of the 681mm mortars. He positions them 50 meters north of 102 battery's gun line, close enough for mutual support, close enough to share perimeter defense. The mortars point east. Their center of arc matches 1600 mils due east. The crews begin digging positions for the tubes and base plate. They dig personal weapon pits. They establish the mortar command post. They string communication wire between their position and the battery command post and regimental headquarters. Field telephones. Backup communications in case the radios fail. Everything by the book. Everything as fast as possible. Darkness is coming. Jensen looks around at the position. Something is wrong. There has been no defense coordination conference. No meeting of commanders to assign sectors. No written defense orders. No clear designation of who is responsible for what. He is a junior officer, but he knows proper procedure. This is not it. But there is no time to correct it now. The sun is touching the horizon. Stand 2 is minutes away. Major Brian Murtaugh is the designated Fire Support Patrol Base Defense Commander. This is standard practice. The regimental second-in-command takes responsibility for coordinating the defense of the gun position. He assigns sectors. He positions machine guns. He coordinates fields of fire with the He ensures everyone knows the plan. But there is no plan. D Company, 3rd RA is supposed to provide close defense for the fire support base. But most of D Company is positioned too far away. Only 10 Platoon is near 161 Battery, 1,500 meters south. The rest of D Company is somewhere in the rubber. Their exact location is not communicated to 102 Battery. This means Ahern and Jensen cannot position their Claymore mines. The command-detonated anti-personnel mines are devastating against infantry assault, but they must be placed carefully. Friendly forces must be clear of the blast zone. Without knowing where D Company is positioned, the mines cannot be deployed, so they remain in their cases. The defensive wire has arrived, but there was no time to string it before darkness coils of concertina wire lie on the ground, useless. The perimeter is naked, open, vulnerable. The 1 RA mortar platoon and 102 battery essentially form their own perimeter. Approximately 110 men, gunners and mortar crews, not infantry. Not trained for sustained defensive operations, but they are what stands between the howitzers and the enemy. Behind them, 300 meters to the southeast, Lieutenant Colonel Bennett's battalion headquarters has set up. The Assault Pioneer Platoon and Anti-Tank Platoon provide security, approximately another 50 men. But that is the extent of infantry presence at the Northern Fire Support Base position. Everyone else is deployed outward, scattered across ambush positions, hunting the enemy, unaware that the enemy has already found them. As darkness falls, Major Gavin Andrews, the 102 Battery Commander, reviews the situation. The battery is in position. The guns are oriented correctly. Ammunition is stocked at each gun. High explosive. Illumination. White phosphorus. The command post is functional. Radios are up. Communications are good with the forward observers attached to the infantry company. But the defensive posture worries him. 1,500 meters from the New Zealand battery, no coordinated defense plan, incomplete protective bonds, no wire, no claymores. If the enemy comes, they will fight as individual gun crews, isolated, alone. He thinks about the reports from the rifle companies. D Company 1 RAR spotted enemy at 1809 hours. 1 North Vietnamese killed. B Company fired at enemy around 1936. Red signal flares have been observed. Green tracer fire. Green tracer is the signature of communist. The Allies use red tracer. Green means enemy. Multiple sightings of green tracer fired vertically. Signal shots. Communication between units. Something is moving out there in the darkness. Something organized. Something big. Andrews makes a decision. He calls Ahern to the command post. They need to prepare final protective fires. FPF. Pre-registered artillery targets at danger close range. If the perimeter is breached, the FPF will be fired immediately. No delay. No approval required. Just fire. The last-ditch defense. Andrews wants 2 FPF tasks. Guns 1, 2, and 3 will lay east, protecting B Company 1 RR. Guns 4, 5, and 6 will lay north, protecting D Company 1 split battery. Half facing east, half facing north. It is irregular. It complicates fire missions. But Andrews feels it necessary. The threat reports are too frequent, too specific. Something is coming. They need to be ready. Ahern agrees. He returns to the gun line and passes the orders to the gun sergeants. The crews traverse their tubes. They load the propellant charges. They set the fuses. They lay the guns on the specified coordinates, ready to fire on command. At midnight, the silence shepherds. The mortar platoon machine gun opens fire. 3 North Vietnamese soldiers have approached the perimeter. The M60 cuts them down. Stand to is called. Everyone to their positions. Weapons ready. Eyes straining into the darkness. An enemy machine gun returns. Green tracer arcs toward the Australian positions. It impacts near the regimental command post. The regimental CP radios the mortar platoon. Stop firing at. Jensen responds curtly, "We only have red tracer. That is green tracer. That is enemy." The machine gun duel continues for several minutes. Then silence. Stand down is ordered. Most of the men return to their weapon pits to sleep. The machine gun sentries remain alert. The night is not over. Far from it. In the darkness, 250 meters north of the gun positions, 600 North Vietnamese soldiers are digging in. They work in complete silence. Entrenching tools scoop the earth. Logs are positioned. Fields of fire are cleared. They are establishing a forming up position, a line of departure, the jump-off point for the assault. Their commander has chosen well. The rubber plantation provides conceal. The distance is perfect. Close enough for a rapid assault, far enough to avoid detection. His scouts have observed the Australian. They watched the helicopters. They noted the incomplete defenses. They identified the gun positions. They counted the defender. The assessment is clear. The Australians are vulnerable. The time to strike is now. Before they complete their defenses, before reinforcements arrive, before dawn. The attack will go in at 0230 hours, 3 hours before the darkest part of the night, when exhaustion is deepest, when alertness is lowest, when surprise is greatest. At 0215 hours, the radio in the 102 battery command post crackles to life. Contact. Contact. Fire mission. Battery. It is Gordon Alexander, the forward observer with D Company 1 Ra. His company is in an ambush position 2,000 meters north of the guns. They have just been hit. Rocket-propelled grenades exploded in the trees above 12 platoon. 11 men are casualties. The platoon is in contact with a large enemy force moving south, moving directly towards fire support base Coral. Alexander needs it now. The command post erupts in activity. The tannoy system blares across the gun position. Contact. Contact. Fire mission. Battery. Gunners tumble from their sleeping positions. They sprint to their guns, traverse the tubes, load the rounds. Stand by. Fire commands are shouted. The guns roar. 105mm high explosive shells arc into the night. They impact 2,000 meters north. Alexander adjusts fire. Left 50. Add 100. Fire for effect. The guns hammer away. 6 tubes firing in rapid succession. Shells rain down on the enemy formation. For 20 minutes, the battery sustains fire. Then Alexander, target destroyed. The gun crews secure. They clean the spent shell casings from around the platforms. Some return to others remain at their guns, smoking, drinking coffee, talking quietly. No, one can sleep now. The adrenaline is flowing. Something is happening tonight. Everyone can feel it. Bob Lowry is the duty officer in the command post. He has processed now he monitors the radio nets. The infantry companies are reporting multiple sightings. Enemy forces are maneuvering. He listens to the chatter. D Company is still reporting enemy moving south. Large formations. Battalion size. Maybe larger. This is not the defeated, demoralized enemy that intelligence described. This is an organized military force. Coordinated, aggressive, dangerous. Major Andrews arrives at the command post. He confers with Lowry. The situation is developing. They may need to fire the final protective fires. The guns are laid. The crews are alert. They are as ready as they can be. Outside the command post, Ian Ahern makes a final check of the gun positions. He walks from gun to gun. The crews are tense. They know something is building. He ensures ammunition is readily available. He confirms communications with each gun sergeant. He verifies the lay of the tubes. Everything is correct. Everything is ready. He returns to the command post. He takes over from Lowry. The radios murmur with traffic. The night presses down. Heavy. Oppressive. Waiting. At 0230 hours, the world explodes. Mick Grimes is behind his M60 machine gun, 50 meters in front of gun number 6. John Schwartzy is beside him. They are peering into the darkness when the rubber trees 50 meters ahead erupt with muzzle flashes. Grimes' eyes widen. Massed ranks of infantry just stood up and came forward. Hundreds of them. Dark shapes moving fast, closing the distance. He presses the trigger. The M60 roars. Tracer fire streams into the attacking. Bodies fall, but more keep coming. The machine gun jams. Grimes clears it. Fires again. Jams. Clears it. Fires. Jams. The weapon is overheating. Fouling. Failing. Schwartzy fires his rifle. They cannot stop them. The North Vietnamese are 30 meters away. 20 meters. 10 meters. Grimes and Schwarzer abandon the machine gun and run. They sprint back towards Gun 6. Behind them, enemy soldiers swarm over the abandoned position. They reach the gun platform. Gun 6 is surrounded by a protective earth bund 3 feet high. The crew is in position. They open fire with rifles and pistols. North Vietnamese soldiers appear on top of the bund. They throw grenades down into the gun pit. Explosions. Screaming. Chaos. Second Lieutenant Matt Cleland empties his pistol at the... He sprints to his personal weapon pit and grabs his F1 submachine gun. He returns to the fight. Gunner Mick Grimes reaches the position. An NVA soldier appears 2 meters away. The soldier fires his AK-47. The burst hits Grimes but his SLR rifle takes the majority of the rounds. The heavy weapons, the stock is shattered. The receiver is dented. But Grimes is alive. He drops the ruined rifle and draws his pistol. He fires point blank into the enemy soldier. Hand-to-hand combat. Close enough to see faces. Close enough to smell sweat and cordite. Close enough to die. Gun Sergeant Max Franklin assesses the situation. They are being overrun. The enemy is on top of them. They cannot hold. He shouts the order. Fall back to Gun 5. The crew withdraws. Fighting as they move, shooting. Grenades exploding around them. Franklin has the presence of mind to grab the firing pin from the howitzer. Without it, the gun cannot be fired. If the North Vietnamese capture it, they capture only a useless steel tube. The crew from Gun 6 reaches Gun 5. They consolidate, they turn and fight. The bunds around Gun 5 provide cover. They pour rifle fire back toward Gun 6. The enemy is attempting to follow, to press the attack, to roll up the gun line. They must be stopped here. On Gun 4, the crew has seen the assault coming. They are the only crew still at their weapon when the attack begins. They are awake, alert, armed. They open fire immediately. Controlled bursts, aimed shots. The L1A1 SLR rifle holds 20 rounds. Reliable, deadly. The gunners work their rifles, firing, reloading, firing again. The muzzle flashes illuminate targets. Enemy soldiers silhouetted against They drop them, one after another. The M60 machine gun that was positioned in front of Gun 4 has been pulled back to the platform. The gunner fires sustained bursts into the advancing enemy. The gun does not jam. It functions perfectly. Tracer fire hosing into the attacking infantry. Bodies pile up 50. The assault falters in front of Gun 4. The North Vietnamese cannot. They shift left, toward the mortar position. Lieutenant Tony Jensen is at the mortar command post when the attack hits. The 81mm mortars cannot engage at this range. Minimum range for the weapons is several hundred meters. The enemy is too close. The mortars are useless. Jensen grabs his rifle. The mortar crews are fighting as infantry. Riflemen. The one ram machine gun positioned with the mortars opens fire. It engages targets to the north. The same direction Guns 4, 5, and 6 are engaging. The perimeter is being hit from the north, a human wave. Hundreds of enemy soldiers advancing through the rubber trees. They are firing AK-47s on full automatic. RPGs streak across the position. The rocket-propelled grenades explode against tree trunks, against the ground, against gun buns. Shrapnel screams through the air. Mortar rounds begin impacting 60mm, 82mm. Enemy indirect fire, pre-registered on the Australian position. The North Vietnamese watched the deployment. They plotted the gun position. Now their mortars walk fire across the battery. High explosive rounds detonate between the howitzers, in the command posts, among the ammunition stacks. One round lands directly on a pile of howitzer ammunition. Nothing happened. Artillery ammunition is remarkably stable. It requires the precise... A mortar round impact is not enough. The shells lie undamaged among the fragments and smoke. Incredible. If that ammunition had cooked off, the entire battery would have been annihilated. In the battery command post, Ian Ahern is attempting to coordinate fire missions while his position is being overrun. The radio nets are chaos. Gordon Alexander, with D Company 2 kilometers north, calls for fire. His company is observing a very large stream of enemy moving south, directly toward Coral. Ahern responds. This call sign underground assault. Alexander's voice comes back. Oh, there is nothing more to say? Ahern cannot help. The guns are fighting for survival. He can hear the battle raging outside. Small arms fire, grenades. Shouting, screaming. He maintains communications with the guns that can still respond. Gun 1, Gun 2. Gun 3 on the southern end of the position are oriented. They are not immediately engaged. They begin traversing their tubes north, toward the sound of bat. They load direct fire rounds, fuses set to super quick, designed to detonate on impact. They prepare to fire over direct fire against attacking infantry. It is the last-ditch defense. The howitzer as a giant shotgun. They lay the guns on the muzzle. They prepare to fire. The regimental command post is taking fire. 12 Field Regiment headquarters personnel are in their weapon pits firing, but the enemy is attacking from the north. Streams of green tracer arc are heavier than anything they have experienced. This is not a probe, not a harassment attack. This is a full-scale assault. They are trying to overrun the position, trying to destroy the guns, trying to kill everyone. The regimental machine gun engages target. The crew works the weapon. Traverse, fire. Traverse, fire. Ammunition belts feed through the gun. Spent casings pile up. The barrel glows red hot. They cannot stop firing. The enemy keeps coming. Major Brian Mortar is coordinating what defense he can, but there is no defense plan, no assigned sectors, no coordinated fields of fire. Each position is fighting independently, isolated, alone. It is every crew for themselves. Survival is a matter of training and courage and luck. Nothing more. The assault reaches its peak. North Vietnamese soldiers are inside among the guns, between positions, everywhere. The Australian gunners are fighting at arm's length. Bayonets are fixed, rifle butts are swung, men grapple hand-to-hand in the darkness. A North Vietnamese soldier appears next to gun 5. An Australian gunner shoots him at point-blank range. The body falls across the ammunition. Another enemy soldier throws a grenade. It lands between two. One of them kicks it away. It explodes harmlessly in the dirt. A gunner's personal weapon pit takes a direct hit from an RPG. The rocket-propelled grenade detonates inside the pit. The earth walls contain. The gunner, crouched at the bottom, is shielded by the angle. He climbs up, ears ringing. Disoriented, but alive. He picks up his rifle and continues fighting. The battle is chaos. No front line. No rear area. 360 degrees of danger. Death comes from any direction. The only thing that matters is killing the enemy. Training takes over. Muscle memory. Drills practiced 1,000 times. Load. Fire. Reload. Fire. Identify target. Engage. Move. Survive. Gun 6 has been abandoned. The enemy holds it. They are attempting to push further into the position. To take gun 5. To take gun 4. To roll up the entire battery from north to south. But the protective earth buns around guns 4 and 5 create strong points. The crews fight from behind cover. They have fields of fire. They can see the enemy approaching. They cut them down. The North Vietnamese pay in blood for every meter. Bodies accumulate in front of the guns. The assault loses momentum. The attackers have taken casualties, heavy casualties. They cannot sustain the advance. The survivors go to ground. They take cover behind tree trunks, in shell craters, behind their own dead. They continue firing, keeping the Australians pinned. But the assault has stalled. The Australian fire is too accurate, too disciplined, too deadly. The gun crews are not panicking. They are not breaking. They are professionals. They are doing what they were trained to do. They are fighting, and they are winning. The southern guns, 1, 2, and 3, have traversed fully north. They are laid on the battle. Gun sergeants peer through they can see the muzzle flashes. They can see the enemy positions. They request permission to fire over open sights. Direct fire into the teeth of the assault. But the command post hesitates. Friendly forces are in that direction. Guns 4, 5, and 6, the mortars, the regimental CP. If they fire, they might hit their own men. The gun sergeants argue. We can see the targets. We know where our people are. We can do this. Finally, permission is granted. Fire 1 round. Observe. Adjust if necessary. Gun number 1 fires. The 105mm shell screams downrange. Super quick fuse. It detonates on impact 400 meters north. The explosion lights up the night. The gun sergeant observes. The round impacted in enemy-held ground, safely beyond the friend. He makes a minor adjustment. Fire for effect. All 3 guns fire. Rapid fire. As fast as the crews can load. The shells impact among the attacking north. High explosive rounds detonating every 5 seconds. Shrapnel trees are shattered. Earth fountains into the air. The enemy assault disintegrates. Men are blown apart. Survivors flee back into the rubber. The direct fire from the howitzers has... The North Vietnamese cannot sustain casualties at this rate. They cannot advance through artillery fire at point-blank range. The assault collapses. 40 minutes after it began, the firing... Sporadic shots. A grenade. A burst of automatic fire. Then silence. The North Vietnamese are withdrawing, pulling back into the darkness, leaving their dead behind. The Australians remain in position, weapons ready, expecting another assault, but it does not come. The enemy has had enough. They have tested the Australian defences. They have paid the price. They will not try again tonight. As the adrenaline fades, the cost becomes... Wounded men call for medics. 11 Australians are dead, 28 are wounded. Some seriously. Medics move through the position, treating casualties. Applying bandages, starting IVs, administering morphine, calling for medical evacuation. But the helicopters cannot come until daylight. The wounded will have to wait. Hold on. Stay alive. Help is coming. The gun crews remain at their positions. They do not know if the enemy will attack again. They must be ready. They reload weapons, they redistribute ammunition, they check their sectors. They wait for dawn. As first light breaks, the scene is revealed. Bodies lie everywhere. North Vietnamese soldiers cut down in the assault. They are piled in front of gun, sprawled around gun 5, scattered across the approach to gun 4, strewn through the mortar position. The Australians count them. 52 confirmed dead left on the field. 52 enemy soldiers who will never go home. 52 men who died trying to overrun an Australian gun position. The bodies tell the story. Most are within 50 meters of the guns. Some are within 10 meters. Several are on top of the protective bunds, hand-to-hand fighting range, close enough to see their faces. Young men, old men, thin from years of war, dressed in khaki uniforms and pith helmets, carrying AK-47 rifles and RPG launchers and satchel charges equipped to destroy artillery, trained to assault fortified positions, brave, determined, disciplined, but not enough. Not against the Australians. Not against 102 Battery and the 1 RAR mortar platoon. Not against men who refused to break, who held their ground, who fought with everything they had, who won. The intelligence picture clarifies through the morning. Documents recovered from the dead at 141 Regiment, 7th North Vietnamese Army Division, augmented by 275 Infiltration Group and 269 Infiltration Group, elite units, experienced, well-trained. They have fought the Americans, they have fought the South Vietnamese, they have ambushed convoys, they have overrun outposts, they know how to attack, they know how to win, but they did not know the Australians. They did not know what they were facing. They expected gunners, rear echelon troops, support personnel, soft targets. Instead, they found soldiers, infantry qualified, jungle trained, battle hardened. Every Australian gunner is trained as an infantryman first. Every man can shoot, can move, can fight. The North Vietnamese attacked artillery and found infantry. They attacked what they thought was a weak point and found a fortress. They threw 600 men against 110 Australians. And they lost. The question arises, how? How did 110 men stop 2,500? How did they survive when every tactical factor favored the enemy? Numbers, surprise, darkness, initiative. The North Vietnamese had every advantage, yet they failed. The answer lies in training, in discipline, in leadership. In the Australian way of war, the Australians fight differently than the American military in Vietnam relies on firepower and mobility, helicopter assaults, artillery fire, airstrikes, overwhelming force applied at the point of contact. The strategy is kill more enemy than they can replace. The Americans establish fire support bases as static artillery platforms. They dominate terrain through firepower. Infantry patrols go out. When they make contact, they call in artillery and air support. The fire base is the safe rear area, heavily defended by infantry companies, surrounded by wire and mines and bunkers. The Americans build fortresses because they expect attacks. They have been hit before. They know the enemy will try to overrun isolate, so they build strong. They build deep. They build to withstand assault. The Australians have a different philosophy. They call their positions fire support patrol bases, not fire support bases. The difference is critical. Patrol. The Australians emphasize patrolling, aggressive, constant, Small unit patrols saturating the area around them. The goal is to dominate the ground, to find the enemy before to ambush him on your terms, to control the battlefield through infantry presence, not just artillery firepower. The Australian doctrine comes from experience. Malaya, Borneo, years of counterinsurgency, years of jungle warfare. They learned that you cannot win by sitting in a fortress. You must go out, you must hunt, you must own the jungle. The Australians are experts at this. Their soldiers are trained to operate independently. Small units, four-man patrols, section-sized ambushes. Every soldier is expected to navigate, to read terrain, to track, to counter-track, to survive in the jungle for days without resupply. The training is hard, the standards are high, but it produces soldiers who are comfortable in the jungle, who move quietly, who see the signs, who think tactically, who take initiative. This training saves them at Coral. When the assault comes, the gun crews, they do not freeze, they react. Every man knows what to do. The gun sergeants make tactical decisions without waiting for orders. They fall back when necessary. They consolidate. They establish new defensive positions. They coordinate fire. The junior officers lead from the front. Cleland fights hand to hand. Ahern maintains communications under fire. Jensen coordinates. Lowry processes fire missions while rounds impact around the command post. Leadership at every level. Not just the commander, not just the senior officers. Every sergeant, every corporal, every gunner, they all lead. They all fight. They all refuse to quit. This is the Australian advantage. This is why they hold. Not because of superior numbers, not because of better weapons, not because of stronger defenses. They hold because of superior. Man for man, the Australians are better trained, better disciplined, better led. And they prove it at Coral. The North Vietnamese perspective is crucial to understanding the battle. Captured documents and post-war interviews with NVA veterans reveal their view. They watched the Australian deployment on May 12th. They saw the confusion. They saw the helicopters arriving out of sequence. They saw the income. They saw the opportunity. Their divisional commander made a bold attack immediately, before the Australians are ready, before they complete their wire, before they dig in, before reinforcements arrive. Strike, strike hard, overwhelm them. The plan was sound. The execution was professional. They moved battalion-sized forces into assault positions only 250 meters from the Australian guns. In silence, in darkness, undetected. They dug fighting positions. They organized their assault wave. They coordinated supporting fires, mortars, RPGs, machine guns. They did everything right. Everything by their doctrine. Everything that had worked before against American positions, against South Vietnamese positions. Everything that should have worked, but it did not. The assault founded on the Australian defense. The NVA expected the gunners to panic, to abandon their weapons, to run. Instead, the gunners fought hard, fought smart, fought to win. The North Vietnamese had never encountered resistance like this from artillerymen. Artillery crews are supposed to be vulnerable, easy targets, rear echelon. But these Australians fought like infantry, like elite infantry. The NVA took casualties they could not sustain. They lost momentum, they lost cohesion, they lost the battle. After the war, North Vietnamese veterans speak with respect about the Australians, not the Americans. The Americans had firepower, helicopters, jets, artillery, technology. But the Australians had something else: skill. The NVA learned to fear the Australians in a way they do not fear the Americans. The Americans are predictable. They move in large units. They make noise. They rely on firepower. You can hear them coming. You can avoid them, or you can ambush them and withdraw before the artillery arrive. The Americans are dangerous but manageable. The Australians are different. They move quietly. Small patrols. 4 men, 6 men, ghosts in the jungle. You do not hear them. You do not see them until it is too late. They track you. They find your camps, your supply routes, your bunkers. They ambush you on trails you thought were secret. They call artillery on positions you thought were hidden. They are always hunting, always there. The NVA respect this. They fear this. After Coral, the word spreads. Do not attack Australian position. The cost is too high. They fight too hard. They do not break. Find another target. Avoid the Australians. The battle at Coral is not finished. The position must be held. The defenses must be completed. The wounded must be evacuated. At first light, American medevac helicopters brave ground fire to extract the casualties. The pilots are courageous. They land in a hot zone, under fire. Rotors turning. Medics load the wounded. The helicopters lift off, racing for the surgical hospitals at Long Bin. Most of the wounded survive. Modern battlefield medicine is saving lives at rates unimaginable in previous wars. Rapid evacuation, immediate surgery, blood transfusions, antibiotics. Men who would have died in World War II now live. But 11 Australians will not come home. 11 men who did their duty, who fought bravely, who gave everything. Their names are recorded. Their sacrifice is honored, but the pain of their loss is carried by their mates, by their families, by a nation that sent them to war. Through May 13th, the Australians work feverishly to strengthen Coral. Engineers arrive with bulldozers. They dig fighting positions, proper bunkers, deep trenches, communication trenches connecting positions. They push up earth bungs around every gun. They clear fields of fire. They improve sightlines. Infantry companies arrive to provide close defense. Wire is strung. Triple concertina, rolled out in belts 50 meters deep. Claymore mines are positioned. Trip flares. Booby traps. The Americans fly in additional artillery. The 155mm self-propelled howitzers of A Battery, 235th Artillery arrive. Heavier guns. Longer range. More firepower. The position transforms from a hasty firebase into a fortress. But it takes time. Time bought with blood on the night of... If the North Vietnamese had waited, if they had attacked on the 14th or 5th, they would have faced a fully prepared position. Wire, mines, bunkers, interlocking fields of fire, infantry companies in depth. They would have been slaughtered. But they attacked on the 12th. When the Australians were vulnerable, when the defenses were in... and they still lost. That is the measure of the Australian soldier. That is the lesson of Coral. The North Vietnamese try again. On May 16th, they launch another assault, this time against 161 Battery's position. The New Zealand gunners. Again, the attack comes at night. Again, rocket-propelled grenades and mortars rain down. Again, massed infantry assaults the perimeter. But this time, the defenses are ready. The wire channels the attack. The claymores shred the assault waves. Machine guns fire from... Artillery fires direct fire. The mortars engage. Flares illuminate the battlefield. The killing is systematic, clinical, brutal. The North Vietnamese cannot get close. They die in the wire. They die in the minefields. They die in front of the guns. The assault collapses within an hour. The enemy withdraws, leaving more dead, suffering more casualties they cannot replace. They do not try again. 2 failures, 2 costly defeats. The lesson is learned. Coral cannot be taken. The Australians cannot be broken. Over the following weeks, the Battle of Coral transitions into the Battle of Coral Balmoral. The Australians establish a second fire support base at Balmoral, several kilometers from Coral. They continue operations against the 7th NVA Division, patrols, ambushes, artillery raids. The North Vietnamese are being ground down. Their supplies are interdicted. Their bunkers are destroyed. Their units are fragmented. By early June, the 7th NVA Division is combat ineffective. They withdraw north, out of the province, out of range. The operation is a success. The Australians have accomplished their mission. They blocked the enemy withdrawal. They destroyed his forces. They protected Saigon, but the cost has been high. 26 Australians killed over the month-long battle, 99 wounded, families shattered, lives changed forever. The price of victory is always paid in blood. The tactical lessons of Coral reverberate through the Australian army. What went right must be repeated. What went wrong must be fixed. The soldiers performed superbly. The junior leaders were outstanding. The training proved its worth. These are the successes. But the planning was flawed. The intelligence was inadequate. The defensive coordination was lacking. These failures must be addressed. Future operations will emphasize detailed planning. Reconnaissance, defense coordination conferences, written orders, clear command relationships. The Australian Army learns from its mistakes. It adapts. It improves. This is the mark of a professional military. Not perfection, but the willingness to examine failures honestly and correct them. The men of 102 Battery and 1 RAR Mortar Platoon do not need lessons. They already know what they did. They held the line when it mattered most. They fought when they could have run. They stood when they could have broken. They won when they should have lost. That is enough. That is everything. In the decades after the war, the veterans of Coral get reunions, commemorations. They shake hands with old comrades. They remember the fallen. They tell stories. Some are funny, some are sad, all are true. They talk about that night, May 13th, 1968, the night they faced 2,500 North Vietnamese soldiers, the night they held with 110 men, the night they proved what Australian soldiers could do. Younger generations listen, sons, grandsons, Australians who never went to war. They hear the stories. They see the medals, the Distinguished Service Order, the Military Cross, the Military Medal, decorations for valor, for leadership under fire, for actions above and beyond. But the veterans do not talk about they talk about mates, about the men beside them, the men who fought, the men who fell, the men who came home. That is what matters. Not the medals, not the glory, the mates. The story of Coral is not widely known outside Australia. The Vietnam War in popular memory is an American war. American battles. Ia Drang, Khe Sanh, Hue, Hamburger Hill. These are the names that echo. But 50,000 Australians served in Vietnam. 521 died. 3,000 were wounded. They fought in the jungle. They patrolled. They ambushed. They held fire bases. They did everything the Americans did. Often, they did it better, quieter, smarter, more effectively. The Australians earned a reputation. The enemy knew. The Americans knew. The Australians were elite. Not special forces, not commandos, just regular infantry, regular artillery, regular soldiers doing an extraordinary job. Coral is the proof. 110 men against 2,500. 11 hours of combat, 52 enemy confirmed dead, position held, mission accomplished. These are the facts. These are the numbers. But the numbers do not capture the reality, the fear, the chaos, the courage, the determination, the refusal to surrender, the decision to fight, to stand, to win. That is the human story. That is what matters. The howitzers of 102 Battery fired thousands of rounds during the Battle of Coral Balmoral, supporting the rifle companies, engaging enemy positions, delivering firepower when and where it was needed. The guns that were nearly overrun on May 13th continued to serve throughout the operation. Gun number 6, abandoned during the assault, was recaptured at first light. The firing pin was replaced. The weapon was back in action by mid-morning. The crew returned to their positions. They cleaned the blood from the buns. They removed the enemy bodies. They restocked ammunition. They went back to work. No drama, no ceremony, just soldiers doing their jobs. This is the Australian way. Get on with it. Do what needs to be done. Do not complain. Do not quit. The job is not finished until it is, and the job at Coral took another 3 weeks. 3 weeks of patrolling, of fighting, of dying. But the Australians saw it through. They finished the job. The legacy of Coral extends beyond tactics and strategy. It is of ordinary men facing extraordinary circumstances, of soldiers who found within themselves the strength to stand when every instinct screamed to run. This is not unique to Australians. Soldiers of every nation have faced such moments. Thermopylae, Rorke's Drift, Bastogne, Chosin Reservoir. Throughout history, small forces have stood against overwhelming odds. Some have held, some have fallen, but all are remembered. All are honored. Coral takes its place among these battles, not because of the scale. The Battle of Coral is small compared to the great battles of history, but because of what it represents: the indomitable human spirit, the refusal to accept defeat, the determination to survive, to protect your mates, to complete the mission. These are values that transcend nationality. They speak to something fundamental in the human experience: the capacity for courage, for sacrifice, for heroism. The men who fought at Coral did not consider themselves heroes. They still do not. Ask them, and they will deflect. I just did my job. Others did more. Talk to the infantry. Talk to the medics. They carried the wounded. They saved lives. I just fired a gun. This humility is characteristic. True heroes rarely recognize their own heroism. They see only the task, the mission, the mates beside them. It is others who must tell the story, who must remember, who must ensure that the sacrifice is not forgotten, that the lessons are passed down, that future generations understand what was given. This is why we study military history. not to glorify war. War is horror. War is waste. War is young men dying far from home for reasons that often seem unclear. But within that horror there are moments of transcendence. Moments when ordinary people do extraordinary things. Moments that reveal the best of humanity, even in the worst of circumstances. Coral is such a moment. The Australian soldiers at Fire Support Base Coral fought for many reasons. Some fought for their country, for Australia. To stop communism, to support the alliance with America, these were the official reasons. The political reasons. But in the moment of battle, those reasons fade. In the moment when the rockets are falling and the bullets are flying and men are dying, you do not fight for politics. You fight for the man beside you. You fight because he is fighting. You fight because to run would be to abandon him, to betray him. You fight because your mates depend on you. This is the fundamental truth of combat. The bond between the loyalty, the trust, the unspoken promise. I will not leave you. I will not fail you. Whatever happens, we face it together. This bond is stronger than fear, stronger than the survival instinct. It is what allows men to stand in the face of death, to charge machine guns, to hold impossible positions, to do things that seem insane to anyone who has not been there. The men of 102 Battery and 1 RAR Mortar Platoon honored that bond. They stood together. They fought together. Some died together. And those who survived carry that bond for the rest of their lives. 58 years have passed since the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral. Most of the men who fought there are now in their 70s and 80s. Time is taking its toll. Each year, fewer veterans remain. The reunions grow smaller. The voices grow quieter. Soon there will be no one left who remembers that night. No one who can describe the sound of the RPGs, the smell of the cordite, the feeling of absolute terror and determination mixed together. The stories will remain, the historical records will remain, but the living memory will fade. This is the inevitable passage of time. The greatest generation is nearly gone. The Vietnam generation is following. One day the wars of the 20th century will be as distant as the Napoleonic Wars are to us now. Names in history books, dates to memorize, battles to study, but not living memory, not personal connection. This makes it even more important to tell these stories now, while we still can. While there are still veterans who can verify, who can add details, who can explain what the official histories miss. The fear, the confusion, the luck, the randomness, the human element that makes history real. The Battle of Fire Support Base Coral deserves to be remembered not just in Australia, but wherever military history is studied. It is a textbook example of defensive operations, of leadership under fire. It demonstrates the value of training, of discipline, of initiative. It shows what well-led soldiers can accomplish against overwhelming odds. These lessons are timeless. They apply to any military in any era. Technology changes, weapons evolve, but the fundamentals remain constant. Train your soldiers well. Lead from the front. Maintain discipline under pressure. Take initiative. Never give up. These principles won at Coral in 1968. They will win on future battlefields. As long as there are soldiers, these lessons will matter. As long as there is war, Coral will have something to teach. For the families of the 11 Australians who died at Coral, the battle is not history. It is personal. It is the reason their father never came home. The reason they grew up without him. The reason there is an empty chair at every family gathering. The reason there is pain that never fully heals. War, they are the hidden cost. The casualty figures do not capture them. 11 killed, 28 wounded. Those are numbers. Behind each number is a family. Parents who lost a son. Wives who lost a husband. Children who lost a father. Brothers. Sisters. Friends. The ripples spread outward, touching hundreds of lives. Shaping futures, creating absences that can never be filled. This is the true cost of war. Not just the men who die, but the lives that are forever changed, the potential that is lost, the futures that will never be. We honor the dead. We remember their sacrifice, but we must also acknowledge the cost, the terrible, incalculable cost that war extracts from everyone it touches. As we close this story, we return to where we began. May 13th, 1968. 2:30 in the morning, Fire Support Base Coral. 110 Australian soldiers, 2,500 North Vietnamese regulars. The odds are impossible. The situation is desperate. The outcome is uncertain, but the Australians do not know they are supposed to lose. They do not know the odds are impossible. They only know their duty. Hold the position. Protect the guns. Fight. That is what they do. They fight with everything they have, with skill, with courage, with determination. And when the sun rises on May 13th, they are still there, bloodied, exhausted, but unbroken. The guns are firing, the position is held, the mission is accomplished. This is the story of Fire Support Base Coral. This is the story of ordinary men doing extraordinary things. This is the story of the Australian soldier. Train hard, fight hard, never give up. Hold the line. These are the lessons. These are the values. This is the legacy. If you found this story powerful, please subscribe to Vietnam War Records. We bring you the forgotten stories, the untold battles, and the extraordinary courage of those who served. Hit that like button, share this video with anyone who appreciates military history, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. What other Vietnam War stories should we cover? Which battles deserve to be remembered? Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering, lest we forget.